Welcome to Dangerous Ideas. I'm Lee Camp. Thanks for being here. Netanyahu could be arrested in 124 countries. That's pretty exciting news. We'll be digging into that. We'll be talking about the Pentagon failing their 7th straight audit. We got a lot coming up. I think I'll play some MSNBC to make fun of because, you know, that always cheers you up. It's like a little ice cream on a Thursday. Why not? And I want to bring in Jaffer Khan. Hello, Jaffer.
Hello, Lee. Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
No problem. Are you excited that if Netanyahu visits 124 countries, he could be arrested?
I don't know if, excited is the right word. I don't know if I'm capable of feeling excitement after the last year, but
Yeah,
it does give me a little spark, a little inkling of something.
Yeah, the ICC has finally issued the watershed arrest warrants for Netanyahu, Gallant, and also one of the heads of Hamas as well. But the Netanyahu and Gallant is for war crimes in Gaza. The ICC has issued arrest warrants for Prime Minister Netanyahu, former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, on allegations of war crimes and crimes against humanity over their role in Israel's ongoing military offensive in the Gaza Strip. That was nice of Dropsite News to not use the word genocide. In its ruling, the court explicitly rejected arguments made by Israel and the U.S. that the ICC does not have jurisdiction over Israel, because Israel never signed on to the ICC, neither did the United States, whereas most countries did. And fascinatingly, in Julian Assange's book, The Wiki Files, one of the big things that comes out in those State Department cables is the efforts the U.S. went to try and sink the ICC and make sure that it would, like when it was being created, and make sure it would not have much power.
Mm-hmm. Very fascinating.
Yeah, and the court said the acceptance by Israel of the court's jurisdiction is not required, as the court can exercise its jurisdiction on the basis of the territorial jurisdiction of Palestine. So basically, Israel does not need to approve the ICC for the ICC to have jurisdiction and say that these are war criminals.
Yes, like most people who get arrested, you don't get to approve or disapprove of it. I mean, you could if you want to, but I don't think it usually makes a difference.
You can't. You like. We're past the days you could just drive to another state and be like, sure, I murdered someone in Idaho, but I didn't murder someone here in Texas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as much as Netanyahu would love to take a trip to Argentina, I'm sure.
How ironic would that be? Where a lot of the Nazis fled. Also, Netanyahu flees to Argentina.
It's the perfect vacation destination for genociders.
For genocidal maniacs, that's true. This is a watershed event in the history of international justice. The ICC has never in over 21 years, and by the way, this is one of the criticisms that I and many have had of the ICC, never in 21 years indicted a pro-Western official. Never once. The U.S. has murdered 6 million people by the Brown University cost of war estimation on the global war on terror. 6 million, never, nary a U.S. official indicted by the ICC. Indeed, no international court since World War II has ever done so against a Western official. So this is a big shift, and it shows just how above and beyond Israel has gone in terms of this genocide. Like, if this had been just a few months of genocide, if it had been slightly different, then the ICC would have found some reason to back off this. But they've kind of been their hand has been forced.
Yeah, and I believe it's been almost exclusively African leaders who have been prosecuted, right? So similar to the American justice system, the ICC is.
And I think with the exception of Milosevic, I'm pretty sure it's been all black people. Only Milosevic is the only one they've gone after. Alongside the 2 top Israeli officials, the ICC also issued an arrest warrant for the head of Hamas's military wing, Mohammed Deif. Despite Israeli claims that he had been killed earlier in the year, they also were going to issue it against Sinwar, except he also has been killed. In 2002, the George W. Bush administration signed into law the bipartisan bill. Yeah, let's not pretend this is just Bush. Bipartisan bill permitting use of the U.S. military to liberate any U.S. or allied personnel charged with war crimes by the court. It's been nicknamed the Hague Invasion Act, that we would invade the Netherlands if they dared arrest a U.S. official. I assume that would result in a lot of people running in clogs. But
yeah, yeah, I mean, it would be crazy. It would be insane to see.
You know, they I have seen them militarize some of those windmills, though. They put knives on the end, bayonets on the end of each leaf of the windmill, and it's not easy.
It's very scary stuff they got going on over there.
Here is the list of 124 countries that the ICC that has signed on to the ICC and therefore could arrest Netanyahu if he were to ever travel there. I'm not going to read the list, but you know, it means I'm sure Netanyahu is furious he can't go to Estonia or Andorra. Of the 124, I think those are the two that'll hurt. Kiribati, which I cannot tell you how many times I've referenced Kiribati. I've literally never heard of that country.
And then there's countries on there I see, like Germany, who probably are not going to exercise the right they have to arrest.
Yeah. Some of them I imagine would not actually do it. I actually think, you know, we can make some jokes about it, but I actually think that this type of thing really does annoy some of these world leaders who, you know, they view themselves as titans of the world and they want to be able to go wherever they fucking want. And the idea that they can't, I think is actually a little frustrating I don't know that Netanyahu is just like, I actually think this is rather annoying. This does not mean, though, that he will end up in prison, which is what we all want to see. But yeah, I
agree that usually genociders are quite a bit entitled and probably Probably like, well, now I do want to go to Estonia.
Oh my God. You should see when Netanyahu gets on the metro, he just assumes he gets the seat. Like he'll push a pregnant woman out of the way. Most entitled asshole.
You never see that man getting up for single mothers on the train.
No, never once.
Terrible guy.
But yes, this actually is a big moment. And, you know, the ICC, despite having finally done it, certainly dragged their feet along for all of this. And, you know, this is a good thing to see. It's also good to see that the majority of the world's countries are, you know, signed on to this. And
it's a good blow against the heavy propaganda that Americans receive over here.
And I believe 80% of the world's population is in countries that are in no way supporting or even lightly supporting or even ostensibly supporting this this genocide. So really the world is opposed to what Israel is doing. And that is another positive of this horror show. We're going to come back to Israel in a bit, but I didn't, you know, this show has increasingly become like first half hour is genocide, and I didn't want to do that yet again today. So we will come back to it a little later.
Yeah, it's not your fault. It's the genocide's fault.
Yeah. Don't worry, everybody. You'll still get a half hour genocide. It'll just be broken up a little bit. But I did want to I wanted to show MSNBC clip of. We did a little bit of this the other day, but this is more of it of them trying to process how it is that Kamala Harris possibly could have lost this election. By the way, everyone, please, thank you so much for being here, and please click thumbs up and click share and all those things. The suppression on my channel somehow gets greater with every single passing day. It really is just unbelievable how they can take, you know, a channel with just on my YouTube, 77,000 followers and basically not show it to anyone. So thank you so much for helping support this show and keeping it going. But Here's a clip of MSNBC, one of their shows, trying to figure out how it could be possible that Kamala Harris could lose this election.
I want to start with you. The number of people who turned out in this election is actually overall lower than 2020 for both of the candidates. Trump is actually still tracking lower than his 2020 vote count, as is Kamala Harris. NBC had exit polls that identified what NBC has defined as, or calling, an ominous development for Democrats. I mean, we only saw just 31% of voters that identified as Democrats turning out to vote, down from 37% 4 years ago. I mean, Natasha, is it the product that's being sold that's the problem, or is it the way that it's being sold to the American people?
Could it be the fact that we absolutely stand for fucking nothing, and that we supported genocide for a year, and that we have deported more immigrants and allowed fossil fuel fracking, and there's absolutely zero that separates the Democrats from the Republicans? Could it be that? Or is it just the message? Have we just not conveyed it correctly?
Democrats are like, look, if you're tired of our nonstop identity politics, don't worry, we got genocide.
Yeah, we'll tack that on. And so, yeah, are and they're shocked that fewer people could come out to vote this time around.
Problem here.
I think one of the main things that we can look to in this moment is the power of the internet and the power of media consumption and the way that it's changed. Frankly, there were a lot of messages that were directed through legacy media that sometimes didn't reach people. You know, this is a different time that we're living in. And so you have...
It's kind of coded, but what she's saying, when she says legacy media, she means New York Times, MSNBC, CNN, all these. She's basically saying the manipulation and lies and propaganda that usually do such an effective job of influencing the American public failed to get out to people well enough. Like, the pro-war nonsense, the pro-genocide nonsense of the New York Times and the Washington Post, it just didn't reach enough people that it used to.
They might as well be doing this segment with each talking head literally buried inside the ground, with their heads buried inside the ground, trying to recruit the nation's top political analysts to understand why a Democrat could have lost this election.
We ship a box of sand for them each to dunk their heads in as they do these reports.
They need it. It's in all their writers.
Who have maybe cut the cord. They don't open the New York Times on a Sunday, but they do get their news from a WhatsApp group chat, or they're on social media. And on the right, Republicans have intentionally and very, very carefully created disinformation campaigns, and they have filled that gap, so to speak.
Republicans have created disinformation campaigns, not at all the New York Times, that literally memos have leaked showing they can't say the word Palestine, they can't say the word genocide. They literally
she has the nerve to
leaked memos
exactly
of their misinformation.
She has the nerve to disparage getting your news from WhatsApp. The Democrats have truly abandoned immigrants in this country. We now know for sure. They're coming after my parents now.
Your parents get their news from WhatsApp?
Yes, every immigrant, especially brown ones, are on WhatsApp getting all their news from there. And that's where I get most of my Biden memes, is my Republican Pakistani uncles sending me WhatsApp boomer Biden memes.
Yeah, and of course they can't possibly do any actual self-analyzation of the fact that maybe if the New York Times actually didn't literally get it wrong, like WMD in Iraq, like Russiagate, literally get it wrong year after year after story after story. If they didn't do that, maybe more people would go to them for news. Could that possibly be something that happened? No, that's not the answer.
To reach people. And so often there were critiques of Democrats. There were critiques of the Biden-Harris administration that didn't have exact answers on the left, right?
And those critiques were just misinformation. There was no reality to that.
Yeah, she's dogging on publications from offering critical analysis of the Democrats.
Yeah. Well, that can't be allowed. I mean,
Paola, my friend, you and I have spent a long time leading up to this election talking about those disinformation campaigns, especially on Spanish language media platforms. You've been pounding the pavement, speaking to the Latino voters, talking to them about these issues. You've written a book about it. You've done specials about it. And now when we look at all of these returns and we're seeing the number of Latinos and Latinas that voted for Donald Trump despite his racist rhetoric, it kind of makes me want to pull my hair out a little bit here, Paola, because not only is it voting against your best self-interest here, but
best self-interest is apparently voting for the candidate that literally deported more people than Trump. Mm-hmm. That's your best self-interest for Latino and Latinas.
Yeah, and it's classic just scolding the public, right? It's classic liberal elitism, further and further disconnecting themselves from the average person.
Yeah.
Paola, explain how it is that this information was available and it could have been accessed. And yet we're sitting here having this conversation now when it's been something that we've been focusing on for a long time. I mean, I saw it happening in real time in Miami-Dade County.
I know you did. I think it's hard because it is a very hard and uncomfortable truth to face what is happening. To face the reality that over 45% of Latinos voted for this person, right? A person that was actively promising.
It's funny.
Their faces.
And she says it's a real uncomfortable truth to face, and you're like on the edge of your seat, like, oh my God, are they going to face the uncomfortable truth? The uncomfortable truth that fucking Harris and Biden were terrible for immigrants and did nothing for them and deported more and treat people like human garbage. Are they going to face? No, it's just the information. It's just that the information didn't get out there.
The disinformation, Lee.
Yes. Well, the disinformation, they're saying the disinformation did get out there and the information failed to get out there.
Mass deportations, actively promising to separate families and talking in such vile ways. And I think what's very important right now is not to just dismiss these gains as simply a result of economic anxiety, as simply a problem of the Democrats. I think we have to dig a little bit deeper and have those uncomfortable conversations. This goes beyond the MAGA movement and politics, in my opinion. Right? This is really about Trump tapping into these very real racial and ethnic anxieties and grievances that as Latinos we carry. And through this movement, that in and of itself sort of was able to expose that we too can carry anti-immigrant sentiments and we too can carry anti-Blackness. And
so now she's accusing immigrants and Latinos of being racist, which, there's racism in any group of people, but when in fact, I think the real reason is that you had an administration that did nothing for immigrants, and then you have people on TV turning around and saying, well, clearly they didn't vote for them because they're racist towards their own people. That's the real reason.
Yeah.
It is like so, I don't know, it's so disgusting and yet uninformed at the same time, and yet condescending and lecturing immigrants for not voting for the people that have treated them like garbage for 4 years.
Yeah.
Now, of course, you and I know that Trump is going to be no better for these people, but a lot of people just go, well, I know these 4 years sucked, so I'm going the other direction. Like, that is just how a lot of Americans vote, no matter the topic.
It's just so obvious why people would not vote for the Democrats. Like this whole charade they're doing is so pointless. Like, might as well just take a vacation, MSNBC, put on some reruns because you're literally offering nothing right now. You know what I mean? Enjoy your lives for a little bit.
Well, and this serves the key, the key goal of actually not asking themselves the true questions of whether they're doing anything for immigrants or doing anything for poor people or doing anything for your average American at all. It's like, oh, let's have those tough questions. And here are the tough questions that are actually not the tough questions, that are actually just completely sidelining any efforts to actually analyze why this party is utterly meaningless. It really is amazing to watch.
I mean, all they discuss is Trump's rhetoric. It's like, if that's as deep as your analysis goes, is rhetoric, then yeah, you are going to lose fucking elections.
Okay, let's move on to one of my favorite topics. The Pentagon just had their 7th audit, where they carefully and skillfully, and it takes a year, and it takes like 1,000 auditors, and they spend just tons of time and money. It takes millions of dollars every time this goes on. This is number 7 audit ever of the Pentagon, and they found out they don't know where the money goes.
It's that time of the year again, Lee. You should have a special theme song for this yearly segment you can do.
I should have a special. This is one of my favorite things is like every year, or just about every year now, the Pentagon has to audit themselves, has to give themselves the colonoscopy, and they do it. And the Pentagon is massive. They are $1 trillion a year, although it's actually more than that if you count black budgets. And, $1 trillion is an unfathomable amount of money. It could do everything you ever wanted for the country. It could rebuild all the bridges. It could house all the homeless. It could get everyone clean water, where we have, the 2,000 cities with unclean water. It could do all of it. It could do all of it easily, and yet instead it only is spent on death and destruction, and they literally can't even account for where it's going.
Yeah. You know what we should do, Lee? We should get in touch with Wesley Snipes and have him be the head, the public face of Pentagon.
Yeah, because he was he
took his ass to jail, dude.
Yeah.
The Pentagon every year. Trillions of dollars.
If you are Wesley Snipes, if you are anyone except the Pentagon, you will go to jail for the tiniest little tax evasion efforts. And I mean, you could not, in the last one, I haven't found details on this. Maybe they didn't give them out, but last audit, their 6th failed audit, they said they could not account for 63% of their assets. 63% of everything the Pentagon does. And this, and I've read up on it. This is not just like money. This is buildings. It's roads. It's land. It's Black Hawk helicopters. It is warehouses filled with stuff that they just find. Like literally they found I think it was 30 some Black Hawk helicopters they didn't realize they had, which is millions and millions of dollars. It is unbelievable the amount of just confusion over what the fuck they have, what they're doing. I mean, it's just so much corruption, and the money is just flowing around. And
it's almost as if you have unlimited money, you're not really incentivized to be organized with it. You're not really incentivized to budget if you have unlimited fucking money.
Hold on. Back up and explain that again. You're saying... You're saying if you just have a spigot of money spraying you in the face, you don't really care where it goes? Is that right?
Yeah, you're not really making an Excel doc for your weekly budget.
But you could not do this. Like, if you had any other kind of business, if you had a daycare and you couldn't account for 63% of the children, I feel like if you were like, look, we have 12 kids, 7, I'm not sure where they went.
Yeah, we don't know where your kids are. Also, we're missing $5 trillion of your money.
Be in prison. This is utterly insane. But yet they do it every year, and each year they do this thing where they go, oh, we're making progress. The Pentagon announced last week that it failed its audits. They said the momentum is on our side.
What?
The momentum in figuring out where all the money is on our side. We're gonna they say they're gonna do it by 2028.
Don't worry, we can't account for 1 trillion actual dollars, but we do have the vague concept of momentum on our side.
Don't shoot low, Jaffer. It's actually 21 trillion that they can't really account for. Oh
my God.
21 trillion of unaccountable financial adjustments.
Wow.
And also some of this, whenever you bring up this topic, the people that want to defend them go, oh, that's not really missing money. That just means they put it in the books wrong, or things like, which is horseshit. Plenty of it is actual dollars, like printed dollar bills, which not much money is printed anymore. But in Iraq, they literally lost $13 billion of printed dollar bills, like saran wrapped. And I've had people, I had a guy tell me that he was in the military back during this, and he remembers some of these pallets of cash arriving. And, you know, they used to joke around with them, like they'd come in, you know, these $100 bills saran wrap like this, and they're like throwing them around like a football. These, you know, completely underpaid soldiers. But so some of this was literally dollar bills that are lost. Like, it's absolutely unbelievable.
Lee, what do you think? This is obvious. This would be pure speculation on our parts, but what do you think is the ratio between being inept and being corrupt? Like, how much do you think is them like being idiots versus how much of them is them being criminals?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. I kind of just go 50-50.
Yeah. That's safe.
Obviously, a lot of it is just them being completely inept, them not knowing how many people. Speaking of how many people, when Defense Secretary Gates was leaving, this is back early 2000s, he said he was going to reform all this and cut the waste and everything. He gave a press conference right as he was on his way out. And he said, he said, we failed to do it, to figure out any of it. And one of the lines that's always stuck with me is he said, often we couldn't even find out how many people worked in a department. Like literally how many human beings are there. They had no idea.
Like basic payroll they don't got. Can you imagine auditing a company and they can't even give you their payroll?
It really... And, you know, maybe we shouldn't be surprised, because it's kind of odd to go to literally the biggest murderers, the most ruthless genocidal maniacs in our world. I mean, in terms of number of people killed, these are them. Go to them and be like, hey, do you have your books in order?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Like, it'd be like going to, you know, the mafia's, you know, Iceman or whatever, who sticks the ice pick into the back of people's heads and being like, do you have your W-9s? Because
exactly,
like you don't expect that guy to really have his shit together.
Yeah, it's like taking the health inspector to the mafia boss. Like that's not even, they're not even worried about that.
Have you cleaned that ice pick? When was the last time you cleaned that ice pick? Yeah. Is that, do you have Purell on that? Because that thing will carry germs. That thing it'll carry germs from one neck to another. But yes, it is utterly insane. And here's another fun irony of this is Elon Musk tweeted out this story about the Pentagon's waste and a failure to do the audit and everything. And this is, you know, Elon Musk also spits out just loads of false stories and just garbage. Actually, I think I'm going to get to one of them in a few minutes. But at the same time, there is such a void of real news that it takes, and, you know, I was showing it from Truth Out there, but Truth Out is like a smaller indie outlet. But it takes someone like unhinged, like Elon Musk, to put this out to a wider audience to say, hey, the Pentagon failed their audit. And then, of course, there's the irony of the fact that Elon Musk supports essentially all of the wars and the death and destruction that the Pentagon's involved in. So he's like, hey, look at all this government waste. Also, keep doing exactly what you're doing. Keep sending missiles to rain down on children. Perfect.
Yeah. He's calling out the Pentagon for their audit. And then he turns around and he's like, luckily, the new president that we're having in office, the absolute portrait of financial transparency, Donald Trump, is going to come in and fix this and make this better.
Yeah. It's a bizarro world. It's hilariously a bizarro world. Okay, oh God, I have so many stories. Let's just do this for fun real quick. Bitcoin is nearing $100,000.
Is that, I don't even know, is that a lot or a little?
Is $100,000 a lot of money, Jaffer?
If I have it, then yeah.
I don't know if you can ask that. $100,000 is like crazy, because a lot of people, I was told to buy Bitcoin when it was 18 cents and I did not do it.
Yeah.
But Bitcoin is doing $100,000. Now it'll probably collapse back down, but it may collapse. It may only collapse back down to like 70,000 or something. It's not going to go that much. It's not going to like collapse that far.
Well, since you posted that story, I just bought 100 shares. You're saying I should not have done that just right now? I just put all my life savings into this.
Into Bitcoin? No, it's probably a good bet.
Thanks, Lee.
It's
You're
probably
the best.
It's probably a good bet. I don't know. I'm always of two sides. So the reason let me say this first. The reason it's shooting up is because Donald Trump has shown some favoritism towards cryptocurrency. He's more of a fan than the Democrats.
He's a gambling man.
He's got his utterly ridiculous NFT trading cards that he sends out and like that. But so the crypto community, it feels that Elon Musk and Donald Trump are very positive towards crypto. So that's one of the biggest reasons that this is shooting up right now. And again, it'll probably go down, but I don't think it's going to go down that much. But I'm of two minds of Bitcoin because on one hand, I think that it is a positive in general, like to take things out of central banking in the United States. It means the U.S. the U.S. currency would have less control. It also is a very powerful tool for those who are unbanked, which is a lot of people in Africa. And so to think of the people that are poorer around this world and how it's a benefit for them. Another thing, which is very important, is a lot of people come to, say, the United States or other countries and send money home to their poorer relatives in Africa, in Palestine, in Latin America. And back before Bitcoin and before cryptocurrency, whatever the ones were, I can't remember the names of the ones where you send cash, Western Union and shit, they would take some crazy percentage. They take like 30% of your earnings so that because you're trying to help your poor mother in, fucking El Salvador or something. But so Bitcoin removes all those charges. So there's a lot of positives. The other side of this is that Bitcoin enthusiasts seem to forget that this doesn't stop capitalism. It doesn't change the overall systems.
Well, and I would say
very rich people are buying into Bitcoin, so you still have. Yep. Okay, I think we're back.
I'm back. I was frozen for a second. Was I?
Yeah, I don't think it was just you. I think it was my whole system here. But you also have incredibly rich people buying into Bitcoin and therefore having a lot of control over it. But I think that you can be excited about Bitcoin and also realize that you're not going to see big change in this world, like real change that we need to see, unless you get outside of capitalism. Like it's still going to be profit over all else. It's still going to be chop down all the forests because it makes us money, whether we switch to Bitcoin or not. So positives, but I think people who act like it is a completely new world are a bit deluded.
Yeah, I would say most Bitcoin enthusiasts are not anti-capitalists in general.
Yeah, a lot are kind of pro-capitalism, libertarians.
Yes.
Yeah. But I just so yeah, there are definitely some positives, and this is just a crazy. And unfortunately, the people who have become Bitcoin millionaires, most of them are like these like disgusting libertarian individuals. There's very few just like absolutely, save the world minded people that have become Bitcoin millionaires.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea the people that have like lost their passwords to their Bitcoin from like 15 years ago? They're like, I would be a trillionaire by now. There should be a convention just for those people where they could just get together and cry on each other's shoulders and
tell their stories of what they would have and could have done.
and have brainstorming meetings where it's like, okay, what you got to put yourself back in that time. Did you have cats? Is it the cats' birthdays? Was that your password?
Yeah.
I could have been a millionaire. I stopped working at the Gap.
Yeah, I mean it's absolutely brutal, but so prayers up to them.
but way before I knew you, John F. O'Donnell, right when he got to, it was like the first year or two of Redacted Tonight.
He was a big crypto guy.
He was a big crypto guy, but the biggest one, the one he was really into was Dogecoin. And he was running around and he's like yelling at me about Doge, and the Doge guys actually like retweeted him or whatever. And so he was like, "Oh my God." And he was starting to, get a little loopy, and, but he was certain Doge was this huge thing or whatever. And then he leaves Redacted for like several months for mental health reasons. And then he comes back and years go by, and Doge, like, it's worth like 38 cents right now. But if you had bought it at 0.001 cent, you could be a millionaire. And so I assumed that John had lost his password at some point. And I asked him like a year ago, I was like, how much Dogecoin did you have when you lost your passwords? And he goes, it's funny, I never actually bought any.
It's hilarious, dude.
He was
he's an idealist to the bitter end.
How amazing Dogecoin is, and had never bought any.
Yeah, theoretically.
Theoretically, it's just awesome.
Yeah. I would never gamble my money away like a psychopath, but theoretically.
Okay, so back to our horrible government and what they're doing about Israel. They have decided to, well, the House has passed this HR 9495, a bill that dramatically increases Trump's power to destroy nonprofits. Basically, all you have to do is say that the nonprofit, supports terrorism. You don't have to give any definition of that. You don't have to give any proof of that. You just say that, and then you can basically destroy that organization. And what this will be used against first is mainly nonprofits that support Palestine. I think of some of the indie outlets that are nonprofits or have nonprofit status, things like Mint Press, and this will be used to go after them first. And 15 Democrats voted for it, 200 Republicans. And if the bill is like signed into law, it'll basically just allow our government to destroy these organizations that are fighting against a genocide, basically.
Yeah, it's terrifying because it's something our government already does with the few protections that are in place. I don't know if you ever covered the Holy Land Foundation, but they're still in prison. And they were quite literally just sending food and blankets to Gaza. But because Gaza is run by the evil Hamas, they were able to say...
Testing.
Oh, hello?
Man, we're having some rough internet today.
Okay, I'm back. Should I keep going on what I was saying?
Yeah, go ahead. They were sending food and blankets to Palestine.
To Gaza, specifically Gaza, right? Who is run by big evil Hamas. And so our government just made that extremely loose connection. Just you're sending anything to a terrorist organization, even though Hamas governs the entire Gaza Strip. They were basically able to send these guys to prison. They're still in prison with zero evidence that they were supporting terror in any way. And again, this was back in the day. Now it's going to get so much worse and so much easier for things like this to happen.
Yeah. And of course, a fair number of Democrats are jumping in with this, which shows just how ridiculous they are. Okay, I want to play. Matthew Ho is he's outside of Gaza, and he's been doing some interviews, and of course, many people know his name. He's a friend of the show. He's a friend of mine, but he also is a veteran. He was in Afghanistan and Iraq, and has basically woken up to the horrors that our military is involved in, and he does great work. Anyway, this is I'm gonna play this whole 3 minutes, I think. This is him talking about what he saw right outside of Gaza.
We were a mile and a half or so from 300,000 people who were being forcibly starved to death by the Israelis. What is grotesque and absurd and obscene that I was not expecting was where we went to look at it. I was expecting we would go to a hillside or be a field that we could look across or something. We went to an observation platform, Judge. We went to an observation deck, just like you have overlooking Niagara Falls, including with the big binoculars where you put the coins in so you could see. And this is an observation platform that looks into Gaza, an observation platform that observes the genocide. And as we were there looking at Gaza, which is the experience itself, because you feel like a voyeur, you feel like a tourist. You find yourself disgusted with yourself that you're standing here watching this, but you're also so far removed. You're so separate from it that it's septic. It's sanitary. You don't see anything that's actually occurring there. You don't hear the screams. You don't hear the dying. You don't see the wrecked bodies. You can't even really make out the damaged buildings. But from this observation platform, it's very picturesque. And it's as if you're watching a movie, essentially. But what was really, and I'm still trying to come to terms with this, I'm trying to find the right words to describe this, was the fact that as we were there trying to understand how we were relating to this genocide occurring in front of us, an Israeli school field trip showed up. And these children, they're teenagers, they came from 2 hours away to come and watch the genocide. And the first rush of boys to the top of the hill to that observation platform, when they caught sight of Gaza, when they caught sight of the genocide, they pumped their fists and they gave the middle finger to it, and they were very, very excited. And so the idea that there weren't just Israeli citizens who were looking at this, gawking at it, but school children have been brought on a field trip from 2 hours away to come and watch the genocide is just an aspect of what's occurring here that my visceral reaction to it is one that I'm really troubled by and having a hard time to process, because it's that aspect of genocide that I observed directly, where the population sees it as entertainment, where you have this complete dismissal of the Palestinians as human beings, but as some form of other, that observing their mass murder is something that's just not acceptable among the population, but is part of their school curriculum. So that is, sitting here a day after, as you can tell, I'm still trying to figure out what the hell I saw yesterday.
Yeah.
Wow.
Totally repulsive. And it also speaks to the fact that this kind of hatred has to be groomed. It has to be put into you. I mean, no child is born thinking this is okay or murdering others is okay. It has to be taught.
Yeah, and it's disgusting and abhorrent and tragic, obviously, but it also really makes me think of the accusation that's levied towards Palestinians all the time to justify their genocide. You always hear Israelis say that these people, these Palestinians, they're taught to kill us as children. And
right.
We never see any evidence of that, but we do see a lot of examples of Israeli schools doing stuff like this.
Right. Everything Israel accused, just about everything Israel accuses Palestinians of or Hamas of is just them projecting. It's the human shields. It's like Israel has legitimately used human shields. There are actually interviews with some who have survived where they say they were told to march in where the IDF thought their bombs were so that it would kill a Palestinian instead of them. So Israel does use human shields. They also, much of the Israeli military in Israel is within the civilian population. It's in Tel Aviv and elsewhere. So this whole human shields thing is, just one example, but just about everything Israel accuses Palestinians of, it's projection. It's accuse your enemy of the thing you're doing so that people can't define you first. The river to the sea thing. It's like, Literally, Netanyahu held up a map in front of the UN days before October 7th that had the West Bank and Gaza removed. Israel regularly says they're going to take over the whole area.
Yeah, and when they claim from the river to the sea, it is literally ethnic cleansing.
Yeah, yeah. But anyway, I'm really glad that Matthew Ho is doing that and is reporting from there. And you know, once he's back or has more time, hopefully I can get him on this show as well. I wanted to jump to like, it seems like the Biden administration on their way out is trying to just do all of the most insane shit they can come up with. Because, you know, there's not a lot of time to be left to be insane. Mm-hmm. And so they have just declared the far right loser of Venezuela's election in July.
Oh my God.
President-elect of Venezuela. They just declared, Anthony Blinken tweeted it out, Edmundo Gonzalez is
successor to Juan Guaido.
Yes, this is Juan Guaido 2.0. Juan Guaido 2.0.
What a dynasty they got going on over there. It's really impressive.
It's just such an old script. They're like rehashing Married with Children scripts. This is just unbelievable. They think this garbage is going to work again. This far-right presidential candidate lost the election. It's been certified by Venezuela's government. It was certified by their Supreme Court. There were election observers. Venezuela's elections are more legitimate by far than the United States. The far-right candidate, Edmundo Gonzalez, has fled to Spain. So he's in Spain right now, and he lost back in July. And today or yesterday, Anthony Blinken says he's the president-elect of Venezuela. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just remote work. You know, we all relate to it. That's what we're doing right now.
It's pandemic remote work. That's exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. There are a lot of Latin American countries. There are a lot of Latin American countries with good leaders and bad leaders. I wonder why it is the U.S. is so caught up on specifically Venezuela, more so than any other. Could it be that there's any connection to the fact that Venezuela has the largest oil reserves in the world?
Well, that's just one of the great mysteries of the world.
Could it have anything to do with that? Literally, they have way more than Saudi Arabia. It is unbelievable oil reserves. Mm-hmm. And some people will occasionally mention that. I'll now give you the part that it seems no one wants to mention, which is it's not just that the U.S. wants to steal the oil because, you know, in some places they steal some of the U.S. steals some of the oil, but like in Iraq, they haven't stolen that much oil. In Syria, they steal some, but it's not some grand amount. The bigger reason that they need to occupy the Syrian oil fields, collapse Iraq, stop Venezuela from being able to do much via economic sanctions is because, yes, they love to have the oil, but really what they need is for that oil to not be outside of the petrodollar. Mm-hmm. So as long as Venezuela can't refine it and can't ship it around the world and it's sitting there, that is way better for the petrodollar, which is where our dollar gets its power, is just to not have it do anything. So kneecapping Venezuela and occupying the Syrian oil fields and collapsing Iraq, these are all about making sure that most oil in the world is still bought and sold in petrodollars. And that can't really be talked about by apparently anyone. I mean, maybe it's why I'm the most censored comedian in the nation. Maybe that's part of it.
Yeah, maybe think about that next time.
Okay. Quick promotional moment before we keep going. I have another live comedy Zoom event. The second and third best Redacted Night correspondents will be on it. Naomi Caravani and John F. O'Donnell will be doing opening sets, as well as as well as Eleanor Goldfield. And that is December 11th and 14th. And you can get $5 tickets at leecamp.simpletix.com, leecamp.simpletix.com. And yeah, check it out. Grab your tickets. So that's Wednesday, December 11th and Saturday, December 14th. And if anyone attends it and hates it, I will refund your $5.
Wow.
So basically you have nothing to lose. There's zero to lose. $5. And you could, I would say just buy tickets because one, you support the show, but two, if you don't come, you just supported the show for $5. If you do attend, then you're going to have fun. If you do attend and you don't have fun, I'll refund your money. So you really have nothing to lose. Just buy a ticket. Don't be an asshole, folks. Just buy a ticket. Tell people how, and you just put up a new one. Tell people about your Instagram, how to watch your videos there. I'm not going to play it because, unfortunately, Instagram, the videos are so goddamn small when you share them on here.
Yeah.
It doesn't look very good. So.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, just if you look up Jaffer Khan on Instagram or TikTok, you can find my videos, my content. Also, if you're in New York, please come see me do stand-up. I'm doing stand-up here all the time. Have our monthly show next Saturday at Pine Box Rock Shop in Bushwick. So follow me on Instagram and you'll get all the details there.
Pinebox.rockshop?
Pinebox Rock Shop is the name.
Pinebox Rock Shop.
Yeah.
I can't say that quickly.
It's a bar that used to be a coffin factory in a warehouse district of Bushwick. So Pinebox
nice.
Rock Shop. Yeah, it's pretty neat.
Nice, man. So if you bomb, you can just step straight into a coffin. And...
Yeah, you're in hell already now. In many ways.
There's been times that I was at comedy shows that felt like a coffin shop, but
yeah, you get off stage, you're like, "Where's a coffin? Please, can I please curl up in a coffin?"
And last thing before I get to the next story, new episode of my podcast, Just Comedy, all my comedy segments. Episode 6 just dropped, as the kids say, and it's on Spotify. It's free to listen on all your platforms, and we are so close to 100 5-star ratings. We're at 96. So if 4 of you want to help out and get us over the brink, that'd be great. It's called Just Comedy on all your platforms. All right. Here's another thing that Elon Musk has been very excited about, which is hilarious, just how dumb it is.
He's an excitable man.
He's
great quality to have.
He's not the only one excited about this. He tweeted out how impressive, I think he's actually tweeted out more than once, how impressive Argentina is right now.
Oh, God.
Argentina, thanks to the U.S., made sure this happened, has a far-right libertarian, he calls himself an anarcho-libertarian or something, but really it's an anarcho-capitalist. And he has President Milei, he has basically gutted everything and is selling Argentina for parts. And guess what? When you do that, when you take a country and you sell all of the resources that should belong to the people and instead you sell them to really rich people, guess what happens? The corporations do very well. Stock prices do very well. Wall Street, or the Argentinian version of Wall Street, does very well. And that is what Elon Musk is celebrating. So Elon Musk doesn't realize that he's secretly showing what he wants for the American people. Here he is just today saying impressive progress in Argentina. And then he's retweeting someone who says, he became the president of Argentina and achieved what economists said was impossible. So excited. Okay, do you want to know the reality of Argentina if you look past some stock prices?
Mm-hmm.
This is 1 month ago. Poverty in Argentina soars to over 50% as Milei's austerity measures hit hard. The far-right president has imposed steep cuts in spending, resulting in widespread poverty. So you add these two things together, he is selling off the country to the rich and destroying the lives of millions of Argentinians.
You don't know if their lives are being destroyed. Maybe it's all of their dreams to one day have their electricity bill be paid to GE. That's what's important.
Or have their electricity cut off.
Or have their electricity cut off. Triple the price, but going to a very responsible corporation in America.
Yeah, and John in the chat is mentioning that there's been massive protests. It's funny when you sink half of your country into poverty, and it's going to be more than that, obviously, when it's all done. People tend to protest. People tend to get upset. But that doesn't really matter to the ruling elite because they're getting very rich. Mm-hmm. And this is what oligarchy looks like. This is what unfettered anarcho-capitalist or whatever he's calling it looks like. It is selling off all of the resources of a country to the richest people in the world. Some of them in Argentina, some of them are probably international companies, but whatever. The resources of Argentina are being sold to the highest bidders. And this is what Elon Musk, and obviously he has a big voice in the Trump administration, this is what they want for the American people, to sink as many Americans into poverty while selling off the parts to the rich. So, and Elon Musk is sitting there tweeting about how awesome this is. This is perfect. This is what he wanted. And if you want to know what part the U.S. played in making sure this happened, the last administration of Argentina had a left-wing or leftist government. And the vice president, a woman, was going to run for president, and she was hugely popular, and she was almost definitely going to win. It was kind of like a no-brainer. And the U.S. helped manufacture lawfare against her. In Argentina, if you're convicted of a crime or certain crimes, you can't run for president. So they knew all they needed to do was get her convicted of something, and they could stop her from running. And they did that. They convicted her of something. Now, because she's over 60 years old, she will not serve any time in jail, which is their laws in Argentina. So it wasn't about making her serve time in jail. It was just about making sure she couldn't run. And that allowed Milei to take over.
Well, when there's a will, there's a way.
When there's lawfare coup, there's a way. That's the old expression.
When there's a CIA, there's a way.
The U.S. has also just vetoed, to go back to Israel, and again, I've mixed it up a little because I don't want to. I don't want it to just be 40 minutes of Israel, but the U.S. has just vetoed another UN Security Council resolution. The resolution demanded an immediate, unconditional, and permanent ceasefire, an immediate and unconditional release of all hostages. I assume they mean hostages held in Gaza, not the 10,000 hostages held in Israel. But still, it would have been a ceasefire. 14 voted in favor. 1, the U.S. vetoed it. So the U.S. is making sure that there can be no ceasefire, that there cannot be a stop to this genocide. And, it is nice that in these woke times, they put a person of color to do this, to continue the genocide. It makes me feel really more comfortable with this vetoing of the ceasefire. And
it's disgusting.
And I did like that she wasn't the one voting, but she is the ambassador to the UN, because I guess that was her assistant or whatever. Not assistant, but secondary. I don't know what they call them. Associate, I don't know. Anyway, but here she is tweeting about this, and she tweeted, "The situation in the Middle East requires an urgent diplomatic solution. For more than a year, we," meaning the U.S., have, she means the world, I guess, have seen devastating civilian suffering in Israel and Gaza, in the West Bank and Lebanon. And we have seen upheaval and unprecedented attacks by Iran and its proxies. Only diplomacy will provide a path forward." And here is the reader added context on Twitter. Ambassador Thomas Greenfield has consistently blocked diplomatic solutions intended to reduce civilian suffering in Gaza. The ambassador blocked UN Security Council resolutions calling for ceasefire 3 times, which she said would, quote, send the wrong message. So here she is calling for diplomacy while it is the U.S. blocking diplomacy.
Another legacy media disinformation campaign by the readers.
But it is great when I'm sure Elon Musk is working to stop these reader added context, but it is amazing when these people get contexted.
Context apostrophe deed.
Yeah. When they get nailed by a context.
Mm-hmm.
But literally, they're stopping diplomacy. They're stopping the ceasefire. And then she puts out a tweet saying, man, we need some diplomacy.
Mm-hmm.
If we just had diplomacy, I don't know where he went. I've been looking for him. But if we just had him, all would be fine. And then in the ongoing ceasefire negotiations with Lebanon, and of course, Israel doesn't want any of these ceasefires. They just, they pretend they do because they know that's the thing to like keep people off their back. But they don't actually want any ceasefires. They've done everything they can. We've seen leaked stuff out of Netanyahu's office showing that he has intentionally torpedoed all ceasefire. Israeli officials demand the right to strike Hezbollah under any ceasefire deal with Lebanon. Well, boy,
that's hilarious.
Does that sound like a ceasefire deal?
Yeah.
We'll have a ceasefire with you as long as we can fire at you.
Yes. We'll have a ceasefire as long as we don't have to cease our fire.
Yes. To quote Princess Bride, I don't think that word means what you think.
I knew there was a Princess Bride quote coming this episode.
You knew it was on the horizon.
I'm mad you made me wait so long.
It was either that one or I'm not left-handed either. One of those was about to hit.
Yeah.
But yeah, literally Israel's saying they'll sign the ceasefire deal with Lebanon as long as they can keep firing on Lebanon. It is, we live in a fucking bizarro world. It's a Mad Libs of just
Yeah.
Like, who takes any of this seriously? Who takes any of this theory seriously? Who fucking talks to these Israeli ambassadors and says like, oh, well, we're working hard on diplomacy? Is there anyone that takes this seriously, that thinks that they aren't just involved in this genocide and they have no intention of stopping it? They have no intention of not bombing Lebanon. Like, it's...
And we, the U.S., we accommodate all of their insane whims like the spoiled child they are to us.
Yeah. We are funding it. We send them missiles every 36 hours to help make sure that this genocide continues.
Yeah, they're truly the Lindsay Lohan of countries, crashing their car and getting a new one the next day. You know what? I feel bad going after Lindsay Lohan. She doesn't deserve that anymore.
That was harsh.
I take that back. Apologies to Lindsay Lohan.
I believe
should not have compared you to the state of Israel.
I'm pretty sure she's sober now in Turkish. So
yeah, exactly. What am I doing?
Yeah.
Apologies to Lindsay Lohan.
Can we get an updated screwed up drunk reference? I don't know who the kids are now.
I don't either. I don't know who the kids are anymore. It's Lindsay Lohan. She's the youngest person I know.
Yeah. Yeah. And somehow these people catch up to you and they become the same age as you at some point. Yeah. All right. I got to get going in a second, but let's see. I want to do one more. And often I have climate stories in the docket, and then there's so much to cover on the genocide front that we don't get to them. But the G20 has just removed language saying that they're moving away from fossil fuel use.
Yeah.
Like, and
this shit is the most infiltrated, whatever you call these talks. It's just absolutely hilarious.
You're talking about COP?
Yeah. I mean, who's the leader? The UAE guy who's like literally led
like oil money
fuel companies. Yeah. It's just it's an absolute joke.
And they're filled. The COP summits are now filled with just oil lobbyists and everything. It really is. There's like panels and things that are funded and promoted by Shell. And this also goes to like one of my points about the Paris Climate Accords, which were all celebrated, and literally of, like 100 nations signed it. I don't know the actual number, but a lot of nations signed on to the Paris Climate Accords. Apparently 2 have actually abided by anything resembling the Paris Climate Accords. And yet, when Donald Trump got into office last time and he ripped up the accords or withdrew the U.S. name from it, liberal media, went around hair on fire like Donald Trump doesn't care about the environment. But in fact, first of all, Biden has not re-signed the Paris Climate Accords. And on top of that, the U.S. was never going to abide by it anyway. Like, they had no teeth. It was the reason they were celebrating it was because it was meaningless. The big banks knew that, and the oil companies knew that. And anyway, it just keeps getting worse. The G20 have now removed their promise that they were eventually one day maybe going to move off of fossil fuels. As if that was holding them to anything. I mean, it's kind of it's like they weren't doing anything anyway, but let's just make it even worse. Let's just make it perfectly clear we are not going to do shit to help this planet or to create a livable future for our children.
Yeah, I mean, we could have a big fake COP conference where we at least can pretend no, not even that. Let's not even do a fake one.
Yeah, and it really is just we are in a financial system that puts a price tag on everything, and therefore exploiting fossil fuels and cutting down all the trees and destroying the environment and destroying the planet. That is what makes the most money. Mm-hmm. And until we become fucking adults and we realize that we need to come up with an economic system that does not reward just sociopathic behavior, until we get there, then you will have this will continue to be the result.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that Bitcoin is the answer. Let's tie it all together. That's what you're saying.
And Bitcoin, which uses crazy amounts of energy, is the answer.
Yes. Yeah.
Herney Hill says he or she is gonna go hug a redwood now, which redwood, honestly, one of my favorite things I've ever seen in my life was the redwoods in California.
They're amazing,
utterly unbelievable, and the fact that they're the remaining redwoods, which is a tiny percentage of what was there, are under threat is just crazy. You're how can you not protect this little vestige of what's amazing about this world? No. All right, folks, I got to run, but I will see you tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, and grab your tickets, leecamp.simpletix.com, to the live Zoom comedy events, and check out my new podcast, Just Comedy, and check out all of Jaffer's stuff on Instagram and TikTok, and I will see you tomorrow.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me, Lee.
All right. Thanks a lot, Jaffer. See you tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. And grab your tickets, leecamp.simpletix.com, and let people know that you get your news from this show, because we are fighting crazy suppression. Keep fighting, folks.
Well, brother, I salute you, though, man. You're one of the few that bring together this tremendous artistic talent and still be in such deep solidarity with oppressed people.
It's an honor to be here, because I'll tell you, Lee, you have one of the funniest shows on television, bar none.
It's an enormous pleasure to be here. While I was waiting, I was leafing through your wonderful book.
The same to you. I love your show. Be happy to come back anytime.
Lee, this is one of the great honors of my long career, just to be in the same earth with you.
I'm sure.
We're just so blinded. We have so many blinders on because our society doesn't want us to know things. And so it takes shows like your show, and
it is clearly designed to eradicate.
Hey, good to see you.
Hey, Jill, how are you? Julian, thanks for joining me. Honor to have you, brother.
Consumerism is a theory that people should behave this way to help each other. It's not.
Mr. George Galloway, thank you so much for joining me in these dark times.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you so much, Lee, for having me on. Keep fighting. Ha ha.